Somewhere along the fragile path of awakening, maybe after a devastating breakdown or a shattering spiritual breakthrough, you felt the ground beneath you crack. Reality no longer looked the same. Suddenly, the illusion of life, the patterns, the lies, the endless noise, ripped open. And for a moment, it was electric. You thought you had touched infinity, but then the silence came. Not a peaceful silence, but a hollow one. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, your sense of meaning drained away. Not in flames, but in whispers. It felt as if your soul turned the volume of existence down to zero and forgot how to raise it again. You weren't chasing anymore. You weren't caring anymore. Not in a careless, destructive way, but in that chilling existential sigh where nothing seems to matter. And the haunting questions started echoing. Why do I feel more dead inside now that I've seen the truth? Here's the paradox no one warns you about. We grow up believing that awakening is a fire, a surge of passion, a life lit up with clarity. But for so many, the seekers, the sensitives, the ones who read and feel too deeply, awakening doesn't ignite. It erases. I knew someone once, brilliant, overflowing with spiritual wisdom, devouring Eckhart Tolle, Alan Watts, Krishnamurti. She passed through a dark night of the soul and woke up on the other side. She said she saw through ego, ambition, all the shiny illusions of identity. But 2 months later, she was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to move. She whispered, "I used to cry about not doing enough. Now, I don't care if I do anything at all. I thought awakening would give me wings. Instead, it burned them." Carl Jung, decades ago, foresaw this shadowy aftermath. He didn't use hashtags or spiritual buzzwords, but he grasped the brutal truth. When the unconscious bursts into the light, the old scaffolding collapses. Jung once wrote, "Enlightenment doesn't come by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Sounds poetic until you realize what that means. Awakening isn't a victory parade, it's a psychological death sentence. The identity you lived with, the you who clung to careers, relationships, goals, and even time itself, dies. But here's the cruel twist. Your ego doesn't vanish. It staggers. It loses its compass, and in the absence of that compass, your drive evaporates. Not because you're depressed or lazy, but because you've stepped out of one life and haven't yet been born into another. You're in suspension, limbo. You've awakened from something, but not into anything. This in-between is terrifying, and almost no one talks about it. Yet Jung would tell you, this is not failure, this is initiation. This void is sacred. Modern culture avoids it at all costs because it looks like paralysis, when in fact, it is transformation. The goals you used to obsess over, the to-do lists, the 5-year plans, the playlists that kept you hustling, they no longer move you. Not because you lost yourself, but because the old engine that drove you has burned out. Jung named this process individuation, the dismantling of the mask, the persona, the false self you wore for the world. Awakening rips that mask away, and suddenly your ambitions feel alien. They belonged to a ghost you no longer are. It's like stepping off stage, forgetting your lines, and realizing you don't even want to play that character anymore. That's why motivation vanishes. You didn't misplace it. You outgrew it. The psyche rejects the counterfeit fuel of ego. It hungers now for truth, not applause, for essence, not success. This is why awakening feels both liberating and catastrophic, because until you cross the dark middle, the self has nowhere stable to land. Many people get stuck here. They numb out, they float, they say nothing matters. They confuse spiritual detachment with apathy. But the deeper self wants something entirely different. It wants embodiment. It wants to take root inside you, not to make you escape the world, but to redefine your place within it. And to do that, you must pass through the phase no influencer posts about, the hermit's silence, the cocoon, the stage of death before rebirth. In myth, it's the underworld. In nature, it's the caterpillar dissolving into formless soup. Not a butterfly yet. Not even a caterpillar anymore. Just goo. And goo doesn't chase goals. It dissolves. The ego panics here. It screams, do something, prove something, become someone. But the deeper voice whispers, wait, let go. Something greater is being woven through you. This is the part modern spirituality sanitizes with good vibes only slogans. But Jung insisted, skip the darkness and you skip the gold. He called the shift enantiodromia, when things collapse into their opposites. Your life swings from ego-driven striving to soul-driven stillness, from I must achieve to what if nothing matters? That swing is not a mistake, it is the sacred reset of the psyche. Ancient traditions recognized this, the hermit phase, the initiation, the silent abyss, and here's the hidden secret. If you endure the void instead of fighting it, something stirs. Slowly, quietly, motivation returns, but reborn, not frantic, not performative, but ancient. A deeper impulse that doesn't feel like chasing, but like remembering. Jung called this the emergence of the self. It is not an idea, it is a compass. When you live from this deeper center, life doesn't demand that you hustle or prove yourself. It draws you. It beckons you with synchronicities, dreams, gut feelings. You no longer chase clarity. You recognize it when it arrives. This doesn't mean you escape pain. You'll still grieve, still stumble, still get tired. But you won't betray your soul again. That's the difference. You stop dragging yourself through jobs, relationships, and ambitions that feel hollow. You start saying yes to things that look ordinary, but feel alive. You follow curiosity, not obligation. Peace becomes more powerful than performance. This is the new fire. Not adrenaline, alignment. Not status, truth. The kind of fire that doesn't roar but burns steadily, deep inside, beyond recognition or applause. Ambition doesn't vanish, it transforms. What once drove you to chase external validation, to hustle, to prove yourself, now becomes devotion. Devotion to living fully. Devotion to creating from the depths of your soul. Devotion to serving and expressing, not because the world expects it, but because your very being demands it. This is not a superficial fire, a flashy spark meant to impress. This is the eternal flame of a soul finally awake. And yet, maybe right now, you feel hollow. A strange emptiness lingers where your old drive once lived. You wonder if something inside you has been broken, if your spark is lost forever. But hear this, you are not broken. What you are witnessing is your old fire burning out. The ego's need for validation fading away so that something far stronger can rise. A flame untouched by judgment, by chaos, by the winds of the world. Something steady, ancient, and unshakable. This is the crucible of transformation. Like the caterpillar dissolving into the cocoon before it emerges as a butterfly, your old identity must collapse so that your deeper self can emerge. Jung never promised the path would be comfortable. In fact, he called it a kind of psychological death, a necessary dissolution of who you thought you were, so that you could be remade. That emptiness you feel, the numbness, the quiet pause, it is sacred. It is the space where your soul gathers strength, where your inner compass is recalibrated, and where the self begins to speak. So, if you feel lost, if you've lost your spark and fear you're broken, you are not. You are being remade. This moment, this silence, this pause is the ground for a new beginning. What rises from it isn't flashy or performative. It's quiet, it's resilient, it's real. It's a fire that doesn't need to prove itself, a drive that doesn't ask for approval. It moves you because it is you, because it cannot do otherwise. And if these words resonate, if they give voice to the silence you've been carrying in secret, share your story in the comments. Speak it aloud, because silence loses its power when truth is spoken. And subscribe to Fractal Wisdom, a space where psychology and soul collide, where we explore what no one else dares to name. Awakening isn't the conclusion, it isn't a final destination. It is the opening chapter of the real story. The story of you becoming whole, of your soul reclaiming its fire. The old spark may have died out, but the new flame rises, steady and eternal. It is not to impress, not to dominate, but to illuminate, to create, to express. And that flame, that fire is you.